Following this story, one some say goes as far back as the fall of the Gaddafi regime, is foreign journalist Peter Fabricius, who now joins me via Skype. Peter, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program. So this bombing of the missile strike at the airport on Monday, is this suggesting that Tripoli is more vulnerable than ever, perhaps to falling?
Yeah, hi, Peter. Very much so. It looked for a while as if Khalifa Haftar, the general based in Benghazi, who's been launching this attack on Tripoli, would take Tripoli in a matter of hours, because he'd moved very quickly across the country from Benghazi. But there's apparently been an unexpected degree of resistance by the forces of the Government of National Accord. That's the UN-recognized government that's based in Tripoli. On both sides, you have a kind of coalition of rather loosely glued together militias. And no one quite knew what would happen when Tripoli was attacked. But those militias on the side of Fayez al-Sarraj, the leader of the Government of National Accord in Tripoli, have been, it seems to me, coherent, brought together more strongly in defense against Haftar.
So is Libya two countries at the moment? We've got these two very strong groups, as you've described, and the government does not control the east at all.
Yeah. No, it is still two countries. Haftar, because of his military prowess, and some sort of ability to form these coalitions with otherwise disparate militias, has captured a large part of the east and then more recently quite a large part of the south, including quite a few oil fields. So there's no doubt at all that he is the most powerful individual in the country. But then on the other hand, you have in Tripoli the government that is internationally recognized. So it has that kind of legitimacy behind it. And now, as we've seen it, there's some sort of military resistance to Haftar. And so the situation at the moment is very precariously poised, I would say.
Could Haftar continue, much in the way that he took Benghazi in the east, a continued effort until all resistance crumbled? Is this what he's trying to do, do you think, in Tripoli?
I think so. There was some view that he might have been just trying to gain leverage at the negotiations, which you mentioned earlier were due to take place this weekend in Libya, the UN negotiations. But that meeting is not taking place for obvious reasons. And I think most analysts believe that Haftar's basic goal is to capture the whole country militarily. They don't see him as much of a political leader, and not having a huge amount of political support or a large political constituency. So they believe that he's relying very heavily on military conquest to gain control of the country.
So talks in Paris, Palermo, United Arab Emirates, they've been negotiating for more than a year. He seems to be suggesting that he's not interested in talking, really. As you said, he just wants to take over the country. Will we end up in a Gaddafi-type environment if he succeeds?
I think that is the great fear. A lot of people see him as a new Gaddafi. And in fact, I'm sure there are quite a few people in quite a few countries, including those that have been supporting him, who see him as the solution to the problem of Libya, because Libya has been a fragmented country, divided into two, sometimes maybe even three governments at times since Gaddafi was toppled in 2011. And so some very pragmatically think that the only solution to this problem, cynically perhaps, is for somebody just to simply take charge, to weld it into one country, no matter what sort of country that would be. The danger would be that he seems to have no real democratic instincts. And so he could very likely be another Gaddafi, controlling the country by brute force.
All right. So, and then Islamists somewhere in the equation there. How much influence do they have, or are they a distant third?
You're talking about who in particular? I lost you there.
The militant groups that he defeated to take over parts of the east. I know that there are sightings of them, particularly in the area between the east and the west.
Yeah, you see, that is another concern, is if the common enemy is removed, how united would these militias remain? And I think that's somewhat incalculable, you know. I mean, the feeling of analysts that I've spoken to up there is that he's basically promised spoils to these militias. And so, you know, if he takes over the country, there will be, I guess, a squabbling for spoils, a squabbling to divide the loot, resistance still from parts of the country where he may not, you know, exercise control. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see an end to conflict. It may help, I suppose, just from the point of view of overall order. But I somehow doubt that it will be a sustainable solution to the problem.
Peter, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for your insights. So the situation in Libya escalating, missiles striking the only functioning airport in Tripoli, part of this, what some people have described as a civil war in the country that's currently underway.